Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of Jets Life Podcast. Thank you for joining. Today we're going to talk about the New York Jets' current cap situation. If you look at overthecap.com, things look a little gloomy, but I'm going to talk about how the Jets can potentially um, make some additional moves with their current roster to generate some additional resources, because that's something that they're definitely going to need. Before I get started, again, thank you for joining. If you could, please hit the like button on my video and subscribe to my channel. It helps me grow, so it's much appreciated for your listening. But also, if you could subscribe, it's a huge help to me as well. Um, so going into the Jets' current situation, as I just mentioned, the Jets currently sit at around $6.6 million in cap space, which is a bad number. But when you also consider the Jets have $10 million allocated to their draft pool, it puts them in a current deficit. So definitely some moves are going to have to be made in order to get this number up. And I've kind of gone through some scenarios here in a way of Jets generating just about $70 million in additional cap room. And I'm going to go through some of those scenarios here now. The first of the scenarios I think is probably one of the more obvious options. I mean, the Jets could still go a route of keeping Zach on the roster, but I just think that it's reached a point where both sides would be better um, moving forward if there's a change of scenery for Zach. So a trade for Zach Wilson would generate $5.5 million in additional cap space. That's a $5.7 million dead cap hit. That's really the only way for the Jets to get any sort of relief out of Zach Wilson's current contract is by trading him and another team taking on that $5.5 million for him to be on their roster for the 2024 season. Kind of an easy situation here. Um, Not much that I can really say about this. I mean, even in a scenario where it's for a conditional pick, I think someone will kind of pop up there for a fifth or sixth round pick. It's got to happen. Again, both sides would be better from this scenario. It's a move that just, if I had to put a rating on this, is probably the number one move I think it's going to be made in the offseason. And with the cap savings, obviously, a much needed move for this team. The next move, I think, it's probably pretty apparent here. A CJ Ozama cut. The Jets um, deactivated him for much of the end of the season last year. They have a young guy in Jerry Rucker. They have a guy in Tyler Conklin who's been playing really well this last couple of years as a pass catcher. Could get better production out of the tight end room. This is a scenario where you cut Ozama, you save $5.2 million, and that basically pays for the dead cap that's on the Zach Wilson trade as well. And you fill in with that tight end position with another player. It's kind of like an addition by subtraction type of situation. You could probably get someone a little bit less than the $5.2 million it cost to cut Ozama. That would play a little better than he did in these past couple of seasons. Um, so another obvious move. Now I start getting into some of the more difficult moves. Some of the what Aaron Rodgers likes to say, some tough decisions are going to have to be made with this roster, because you're not just going to cut Zach Wilson and Ozama. That's really like a net nothing when you consider the draft pool that we have. So for this team to really be effective in this offseason, there's going to need to be additional moves, and these tough decisions start with a leader of our defense, CJ Mosley. Um, he carries a huge cap number at around $21.5 million. If the Jets can cut him and designate him as a post June 1 cut, they would save $17.1 million in cap space. In cap space, um, you know, you keep hearing Aaron Rodgers in these press conferences on the Pat McAfee show or whatever it is, these tough decisions. And when you really look at this roster, there's not many tough decisions that the Jets can even make. I've limited my list here to really kind of drilling down and saying what moves can they possibly make. And this is the one that just smacks you dead in the face. A $21.5 million cap hit for a linebacker. I know he's the leader of our defense. He will be sorely missed if a cut does happen. Maybe the Jets can go in there with a an adjustment to his cap number, bring it down rather significantly. But using just the nature of NFL transactions, him leaving the team, saving $17.1 million, you can get another great linebacker through free agency at a much lower cap number than $17.1 million. So even if you wanted to just simply replace him with another linebacker. It's possible. There's not many linebackers like C.J. Mosley, but it's a scenario where you have a budding star in Quincy Williams that maybe takes the next step and he becomes our C.J. Mosley, while a guy like Jamian Sherwood or somebody we get in free agency kind of fills that role as a second linebacker on this team. Um, I honestly think this is a move that maybe the Jets don't necessarily do, but it's one that, when you keep hearing Aaron Rodgers talk about tough decisions, this is a tough decision, and it's one that comes with a huge, huge relief for the Jets cap situation. Um, Great linebacker. It's just one of those scenarios where like, you look at it, it's like, can we really afford to lose him? But that's a huge number once again. Um, and I'm going to go into that post June 1 designation here. So um, there's a lot to go in here. So the Jets would actually save by assigning a post June 1 because his normal dead cap hit, I believe, is around 10.4 million. Yes, 10.4 million is his normal dead cap hit. So by cutting him post June 1, 6 million of that 10.4 million dollar dead cap hit goes to the following year. So you still have the same amount of dead cap room. It's just you're spreading that difference within the current year and next year. I've heard many people talk about, do you really want to, you know, make a move like that and impact your next year's cap room? Um, in the NFL landscape, it's a move that makes a lot of sense because even in a scenario, you're always in a now. It's a win now league, especially for the Jets. It's a win now season, so you need that money in the current year. But even if you don't use those funds, there's rollover cap. So even if the Jets play it smart and hold on to that additional cap room, which they should do for transactions during the season, as we know injuries happen, and the Jets have always had to make additional transactions during the season. Um, if you don't use that $6 million that you're saving by cutting Mosley post June 1, you're still going to roll that money over to next year anyway, and it's really like a net negative. But talking about the current situation, the Jets need the funds now. Um, Now another thing with the post June 1 transaction is that the cap relief does not hit until June 1. So the Jets cannot use this for any free agency moves during the period of free agency starting, which I think is March 17th, usually somewhere around there, all the way until June 1st. So this is a kind of a move that the Jets would have to make with the eye towards that second and third waves of free agency after the draft and even later than that because June comes entire month basically after the draft. Next move I'm going to talk about here is another post June 1 transaction. Um, One that makes a lot of sense again. Lake and Tomlinson. Jets would save about 18.9 million in cap space. Sorry, 13 million cap space. His $18 million cap figure would get hit with a $5.9 million dead cap hit. Again, talking about what the impacts of that would be next year. You're talking about $4.8 million getting rolled into the following year. So um, between both these moves, you're taking a $10.8 million cap hit into the future, and you're creating almost $30 million in the current year in cap space. It's a move that makes a lot of sense when you're a team that really just needs to kind of make a move here. And Laken Tomlinson, he plays a vital position at left guard. It's a situation where you would remove him, move AVT back to his original position, left guard. I know the Jets have toyed with the idea of potentially using him at one of the tackle spots, maybe at right guard. At the end of the day, the Jets need three offensive linemen because Laken Tomlinson did not play good this season. Maybe, there's a scenario where the Jets can bring in a good tackle to put next to Laken and it makes him better, similar to what was going on in San Francisco. Um, because I mean, other than the fact that he was surrounded by greatness, it doesn't make a lot of sense for how he just fell off the face of the earth as far as a guard. Doesn't make a lot of sense. The Jets even played to his strength and moved Elijah Vera Tucker to the right side of the line in favor of Laken playing a position he was familiar with. Um, but it just hasn't worked out to this point, and the Jets can get out of this horrible move um, with some relief and upgrade the offensive line would really be the kind of key here. The next few moves here, I kind of grouped them all together. It's a lot of gymnastics with the cap here, but the Jets have the ability to create about another $22 million in cap space by simply restructuring both Quinnen and Conklin's contracts. But the biggest one here is extending DJ Reed. So DJ Reed has a pretty significant cap number in the current year. Um, and really, I mean, the Jets aren't going to cut him. They're not going to do anything like that. I mean, I know there's that, potential for, when Rodgers talks about those tough decisions. DJ Reed isn't one that really makes a lot of sense. Um, Maybe a trade, but it just none of that makes a lot of sense for the Jets' current roster. They're built around this defense. They're built around that secondary and that pass rush. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to um, take away a great player in the secondary just to just save some money there. It The only thing that makes sense here is a potential extension. Now, with that extension comes kind of that look towards the future. Um, Sauce Gardner is going into his third year. A lot of his rookies, especially the ones that play at elite level, will look to try and restructure or kind of come to some sort of extension after the third year. A lot of times with defensive players and players that are non-quarterbacks, the team is in favor of kicking the can down the road, rightfully so. Um, but that's something you just got to look at. If the Jets are looking at DJ Reed extension, you just got to make sure you're not allocating too much funds into the cornerback position. Um, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. I think the Jets can get away with like a 3-year extension for DJ Reed, and that will kind of fall right in line. Maybe you're paying DJ Reed and Sauce high dollar value in 1 year together, and then obviously you'll have to kind of transition. Another player to think about here too with an extension, DJ Reed, is Michael Carter. At some point, Michael Carter, obviously cornerback. Um, He's a player that's due for an extension at some point. He has been playing outstanding in the nickel. He's been one of the best in the league at that position. At some point or another, the Jets are going to need to pay him, and can't have a situation like we have with Bryce Huff, where you get to you know 2 months away from the end of their contract, and there's no deal put in place. Michael Carter's been an outstanding player. He's been durable, plays almost every single game. It's a player that deserves a contract, so something has to happen there. So just some foresight there. You just can't put words on this. Like extend DJ Reed, make the money. Still, you have to look at that position as a whole and say, okay, are there other areas the Jets are looking into the future that they're going to have to pay somebody at that same position. I don't think that's much of an issue there. Like I said, the biggest thing is Sauce. Going to get a big payday whenever it's due. Um, so is that going to conflict? Obviously, the Jets would do the right thing and pay Sauce and do whatever needs to be done with DJ Reed's contract. But just kind of keeping that foresight, you don't want to put too much into that contract to where it potentially puts too much into that position for an extended period of time. Um, and then obviously Conklin, a restructure makes a lot of sense. Um, you know, just kind of lower his cap number in the current year. Maybe you add some void years. The one that makes the most sense, Quinn Williams, a restructure. Usually with restructures, I mean, there's a lot of contracts that when I looked at, the Jets can restructure. But the biggest thing with a restructure is you want someone that you see as a potential player that's going to be on the roster in the future. I know Conklin doesn't really fit that bill, but it's a little bit of cap savings and not a huge dead cap hit if they were to move it into the void years. But Quinn makes a lot of sense. I mean, he just signed a contract extension. He's going to be here for a bunch of years moving forward. A restructure to put some more money in the current year. Obviously, that impacts the future. You know, you're just reassigning the cap number, taking a little bit less this year, more in the following years. So it's a move that makes sense. There's not many players that fell into the bill of like potential restructures for cap savings that I really saw as players that you'd want to take dead cap for. Just leave them on the roster, let their contract expire, and move on from them. It's kind of the best scenario. So that's all the moves I went through that kind of hit the bill of like obvious, could happen, likely to happen. The next move, it was one that popped out to me. It's a pretty big figure that the Jets would save. Is a JFM trade. I'm not personally in favor of this. I'm not at all condoning a trade for JFM, but I will kind of caveat that with Bryce Huff is a free agent in the current year. He has a huge cap number. If the potential savings of trading JFM, which would bring back additional resources. I'm not sure the trade value for a guy like JFM. Maybe the Jets can send JFM and fourth round pick to a team and bring back a third round pick. You get another premium asset that you can use in the draft, um, and then um, you get $7.3 million. If that makes some if that turns some heads and makes some more possibility of potentially bringing back Bryce Huff and extending him to a long-term contract, that's the part that puts me in favor of the move. If it's a situation where Bryce Huff is already gone and he's a free agent, signed with a different team, and then you're still trying to create that cap room and you're trading JFM, I think you're taking way too many hits at the defensive line position. I know it's a strong group, but you can't lose two of your top snap count guys in one off season like that. This is a move strictly with the focus of can the Jets bring back Bryce Huff? If they make this move, can they make it work? I don't see a reason why they just can't make it work with the moves I stated above. But if it moves the needle a little bit more to add this additional move and then bring in that additional capital that you can use on another play in the draft, because the Jets don't have a lot of draft resources. We all know that pretty clearly. They have that 10th pick, and then they won't pick again until I think the 80th pick or 82nd pick, whatever it is. So pretty late in the draft. Not late, but a huge gap between picks. But you can put another pick into that third round kind of grouping, potentially with a trade of JFM and a fourth round pick to move up, and then you get that $7.3 million in cap savings. Again, not a move that I'm in favor in, but if it means that the Jets have a more likely ability to bring back Bryce Huff, then it's a move that I think the Jets really need to consider. Um, Tell me how you feel about all these moves. I put some time into this. I think that there's definitely a scenario where the Jets can make some of these moves. I mean, something has to be done. I mean, the Jets cannot go into the offseason with just simply $6.6 million in cap space. We saw how terrible this offense was in this offseason. They've got to fill holes. There's a lot of holes to fill, and the only way to do it, in my opinion, is to make some of these tough decisions. And yeah, let me know how you feel. A lot of transactions I talked about. Let me know if you think any of these were just outlandish and crazy, or if you agree, or if there's another move that I missed. Spent some time. I tried looking through everything. I think these were the ones that popped out the most. But if there's another move that you're thinking of, just leave in my comments. And I'd be happy to reply. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel is a huge help to help me grow this channel. Um, you know, gotta gotta get those gotta get those likes up, gotta get those views up, and I appreciate the time. And most importantly, it's gonna be a long off season. It's gonna be a lot. This team is gonna look the same. There's gonna be some differences on this team, but hopefully it's for the better. We can only hope for that after now 13 years of no playoffs. Um, these are the moves that I think needs to happen for the Jets to have a real opportunity to improve this roster in the offseason. Thank you for joining, and most importantly, let's go Jets.